What happens when a country music icon sits down for what should be a friendly chat, only to have everything spiral into an all-out verbal brawl? It only took 24 seconds for pleasantries to turn into pure chaos. Before we dive into this explosive showdown, make sure you hit that subscribe button for daily videos exposing Hollywood's darkest scandals. Last night on The View, what started as a celebration of Faith Hill's incredible career turned into one of the most shocking confrontations in daytime television history. The country superstar walked onto that stage with a smile, ready to talk about her music and her life. But what unfolded was a clash that left the entire studio stunned and viewers at home absolutely speechless. Faith Hill arrived at The View looking radiant and ready for what she thought would be a fun, lighthearted conversation. She wore a stunning white blazer and greeted the panel with warm hugs. Whoopi Goldberg, sitting in her usual spot at the head of the table, welcomed Faith with what seemed like genuine enthusiasm. The other co-hosts were equally excited, ready to discuss Faith's latest projects and her legendary career in country music. "Faith Hill, welcome to The View," Whoopi said, gesturing to the seat next to her. "It's so great to have you here. You look absolutely gorgeous." "Thank you so much, Whoopi," Faith replied, settling into her chair. "I'm thrilled to be here. I've been watching the show for years." The conversation started smoothly enough. They talked about Faith's upcoming tour, her family life with Tim McGraw, and her experience on the country music scene. Faith was animated and engaging, telling stories that had the audience laughing and clapping. The co-hosts seemed genuinely interested, asking questions about her music and her journey to stardom. But then Whoopi steered the conversation in a different direction. "So Faith, I want to ask you about something that's been making waves in the music industry," Whoopi began, her tone shifting slightly. "There's been a lot of conversation about diversity in country music, or should I say, the lack of it. As one of the biggest names in country, what do you think about how the genre has historically excluded black artists?" Faith's smile faltered just a bit. "Well, I think country music has a complex history. There are definitely areas where the industry could do better in terms of representation and inclusion." "Could do better?" Whoopi repeated, raising her eyebrows. "That's putting it mildly, don't you think? Country music has basically shut out black artists for decades, despite the fact that black musicians were fundamental in creating the genre in the first place." "I understand that perspective," Faith said carefully, "and I think there are a lot of people in country music who are working to change that and make the genre more inclusive. Are you one of those people?" Whoopi asked directly. "Because I've been watching your career for a long time, and I can't recall you ever really speaking out about this issue or using your platform to advocate for black country artists." The other co-hosts shifted uncomfortably in their seats. The audience had gone quiet. "I've tried to support all artists," Faith said, her voice tightening. "I don't think it's fair to say I haven't used my platform. I've worked with diverse musicians throughout my career. Working with people isn't the same as advocating for them," Whoopi pressed. "You have enormous influence in country music. You could be out there demanding change, calling out the racism that's baked into the industry. But you don't. Why is that?" "Whoopi, I don't think that's entirely fair," Faith said, a defensive edge creeping into her voice. "You don't know everything I do behind the scenes. I don't have to broadcast every conversation or every action I take to prove that I care about these issues." "Behind the scenes doesn't change the industry," Whoopi shot back. "What changes things is when people with power and privilege stand up publicly and say, 'This is wrong, and we need to fix it.' Have you ever done that?" "I've spoken about inclusion in interviews," Faith insisted. "I've talked about how country music should be open to everyone. Spoken about it in vague terms." "Sure," Whoopi said, leaning forward. "But have you ever specifically called out the racism? Have you ever named names? Have you ever actually put your career on the line to stand up for what's right?" Faith's jaw tightened. "I don't think putting my career on the line is a requirement for caring about social issues. I can support change without being confrontational about it." And that's exactly the problem, Whoopi said, her voice rising. White artists in country music want to benefit from a genre that black people helped create, but they don't want to do the uncomfortable work of confronting the racism that's kept black artists out. You want to sing the songs, make the money, and stay comfortable. That's not fair, Faith said, her voice shaking slightly now. You're painting me as someone who doesn't care, and that's not true. I care deeply about equality and fairness in the music industry. Then why haven't we heard more from you? Whoopi demanded. You've been at the top of country music for decades. You have a voice that people listen to. And yet, when Beyoncé released a country album and faced backlash from country radio, where were you? When Mickey Guyton has been speaking out about the racism she's faced, have you stood beside her publicly? I can't be expected to comment on every single thing that happens in the industry, Faith said, her voice getting louder. I'm a musician, not a politician. Oh, here we go, Whoopi said, shaking her head. The old "I'm just a musician" excuse. You know who else said that? Every white artist who didn't want to get involved during the civil rights movement. It's a cop-out, Faith, and you know it. The other co-hosts were frozen, unsure whether to intervene or let this play out. The audience was dead silent, the tension in the studio thick enough to cut with a knife. I resent that comparison, Faith said, her eyes flashing with anger now. That's completely unfair, and honestly, it's insulting. You're accusing me of being complicit in racism because I don't perform my activism the way you think I should. I'm not accusing you of anything, Whoopi said. I'm asking you a simple question. What have you done to use your enormous platform to fight racism in country music? And so far, you haven't given me a real answer. Because there isn't an answer that will satisfy you, Faith snapped. You've already made up your mind about me. You brought me here under the pretense of a friendly conversation, and instead you're ambushing me with these accusations. Ambushing you? Whoopi laughed, but there was no humor in it. Asking you to account for your silence on racism is an ambush? That's exactly the kind of white fragility I'm talking about. White fragility? Faith repeated, her voice rising sharply. You don't get to psychoanalyze me, Whoopi. You don't know me. You don't know what I think or what I do or what conversations I have in my own life. You're right. I don't know what you do in private, Whoopi said. But what I do know is what you do publicly. And publicly, you've been pretty damn quiet about one of the most important issues facing your industry. It counts, Whoopi acknowledged, but it's not enough. Not when you have the platform you have. Not when you have the influence you have. Personal goodness isn't the same as public advocacy. So, what am I supposed to do? Faith asked, her voice breaking with frustration. What exactly would make you happy, Whoopi? Should I post on social media every day? Should I give speeches? Should I organize protests? Tell me what the acceptable level of activism is, and I'll let you know if it fits into my life. There it is, Whoopi said, pointing at her. It fits into your life. That's the whole problem right there. Fighting racism shouldn't be something that fits into your life. It should be central to it. It should be non-negotiable. Easy for you to say, Faith shot back. You've built your entire career on being outspoken. That's your brand. But not everyone operates that way. Some people are quieter. Some people work differently. That doesn't make them bad people or complicit in racism. No, but it does make them less effective, Whoopi said. And when you have power and you choose not to use it effectively, that's a problem. I use my power in ways that feel authentic to me, Faith insisted. I'm not going to pretend to be someone I'm not just to satisfy your idea of what an activist should look like. Authentic, Whoopi repeated with a bitter laugh. That's another convenient word. I'm just being authentic is what people say when they don't want to be. Uncomfortable. When they don't want to stretch. When they don't want to grow. Or maybe it's what people say when they're tired of being judged by someone who thinks they have all the answers, Faith said, her voice sharp. You act like you're the moral authority on everything, Whoopi. Like everyone should just follow your lead and do things your way. But you know what? You don't get to decide how I live my life or how I use my voice. I'm not trying to decide anything, Whoopi said, her voice rising to match Faith's. I'm trying to challenge you to think bigger, to care more, to do more. And the fact that you're getting this defensive tells me I'm touching a nerve. You're not touching a nerve, Faith said, though her shaking voice suggested otherwise. You're being deliberately provocative because that's what this show does. You bring people on, you attack them, and then you act surprised when they get upset. Attack? Whoopi's eyebrows shot up. I'm asking you questions. I'm holding you accountable. If that feels like an attack, maybe you should examine why. Because they're not questions, Faith said, her voice rising. They're accusations dressed up as questions. Every single thing you've said has been designed to make me look bad, to make me seem like I don't care, to paint me as some kind of privileged white woman who's benefiting from black culture without giving anything back. Aren't you, though? Whoopi asked bluntly. The studio went completely silent. Even the other co-hosts looked shocked. Excuse me? Faith's voice was barely a whisper. Country music was built on the backs of black musicians, Whoopi said, her voice steady and firm. The banjo came from Africa. The blues, which is the foundation of country music, came from black artists. And yet, when you look at country music today, it's overwhelmingly white. The awards go to white artists. The radio play goes to white artists. The money goes to white artists. And you're one of the biggest beneficiaries of that system. So yeah, I'm asking, what are you giving back? Maybe because I don't think public performance of activism is always the answer, Faith fired back. Maybe I think that real change happens through action, not through Twitter posts and performative statements. Oh, so now speaking out publicly is performative? Whoopi's voice was dripping with sarcasm. That's convenient. You get to say nothing, do nothing visible, and then criticize people who actually put themselves out there. I didn't say I do nothing, Faith said, her hands clenching into fists on the table. I said I don't broadcast everything. There's a difference. Is there? Whoopi challenged. Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you're hiding behind this excuse of private action to avoid taking any real stance that might make your country music fans uncomfortable. My fans have nothing to do with this, Faith said defensively. Don't they? Whoopi pressed. Let's be honest, Faith. A big chunk of your fan base probably doesn't want to hear you talking about racism. They don't want you getting political. And so you stay quiet to protect your career, your brand, your bottom line. That's not true, Faith's voice cracked. You're putting words in my mouth and motives in my head that aren't there. This is exactly what I'm talking about. You're not interested in a real conversation. You just want to tear me down. I'm interested in accountability, Whoopi said firmly. I'm interested in people with power using it responsibly. And I'm interested in calling out complicity when I see it. Complicity? Faith's voice shook with anger. That's a serious accusation, Whoopi. You're essentially calling me a racist without having the guts to actually say the word. I'm not calling you racist, Whoopi clarified. I'm saying that silence in the face of racism is its own problem. I'm saying that neutrality isn't an option when it comes to justice. I'm not neutral, Faith protested. I believe in equality. I believe in fairness. I believe everyone should have the same opportunities. Believing it isn't enough, Whoopi said sharply. You have to fight for it. You have to risk something. You have to make people uncomfortable, including yourself. And I don't see you doing that. Because you're not looking, Faith said, her voice rising again. You've decided I'm guilty, and now you're just looking for evidence to support your conclusion. That's not fair, and it's not journalism. This isn't a courtroom, Faith, Whoopi said. I'm not trying to convict you of anything. I'm trying to challenge you to be better, to do more, to use what you have for something bigger than yourself. And what have you decided is better? Faith demanded. What's the magic formula that will satisfy you? How many tweets do I need to send? How many statements do I need to make? How many times do I need to say the right words in the right way before you'll Accept that I'm a good person? It's not about being a good person, Whoopi said, her voice getting louder. It's about doing good work. It's about showing up. It's about not being silent when silence benefits the oppressor. Oh my God, Faith said, putting her head in her hands. You're really comparing me to an oppressor now? That's what this has come to? I'm comparing your silence to the silence of people who let oppression happen, Whoopi said. There's a famous quote, "The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good people to do nothing." Maybe you're a good person, Faith. But what are you doing? I'm doing plenty, Faith said through gritted teeth. I'm raising my kids to be compassionate and aware. I'm supporting causes I believe in. I'm trying to be a good person in my daily life. That counts for something. Complicity? Faith stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. You're calling me complicit in racism? Based on what? Based on the fact that I don't tweet about every single issue that crosses my mind? Based on your silence, Whoopi said, standing up as well. Based on your comfort. Based on the fact that you've built a career in a genre that has systematically excluded black artists, and you've never once made that a priority to address. You have no idea what my priorities are, Faith said, her voice shaking with rage now. You sit here, in your comfortable chair, on your television show, judging everyone who doesn't meet your standards of activism. But you know what? You're not the arbiter of how people should fight for justice. No, I'm not, Whoopi agreed. But I am someone who's been fighting these battles my entire life. And I know the difference between people who are actually in the fight and people who are just trying to look good while staying comfortable. And which one do you think I am? Faith demanded. I think you're someone who's had every opportunity to use your platform for good, and you've chosen not to, Whoopi said bluntly. I think you're someone who benefits from a system built on racism and doesn't want to rock the boat. That's bullshit, Faith said, her voice sharp. That's complete and utter bullshit, Whoopi. You don't know me. You don't know what I believe or what I fight for. You've made assumptions based on your own biases. My biases? Whoopi's voice rose. My biases against racism? My biases against people who stay silent in the face of injustice? Yeah, I'll own those biases all day long. This isn't about racism, Faith said, her voice breaking. This is about you wanting to make an example of me. This is about you needing a villain for your show, and you decided it would be me today. No, Faith, Whoopi said, shaking her head. You're making yourself the villain by refusing to take responsibility. All I asked you was what you're doing to fight racism in country music. If you had a good answer, we wouldn't be here right now. I don't owe you an answer, Faith said, her eyes blazing. I don't owe you a performance of my values. I don't owe you anything. You don't owe me anything, Whoopi agreed. But you owe something to the black artists who built the foundation of the music you make millions from. You owe them your voice, your platform, your advocacy, and you're not giving it to them. You don't get to tell me what I owe anyone, Faith shot back. You don't get to decide what my responsibilities are. I'm a singer. I sing songs. I entertain people. That's my job. And there it is, Whoopi said, pointing at Faith. There's the truth. You think your only job is to entertain. You think you can just collect your money and go home without any responsibility to the community or the genre or the people who made your success possible. I have plenty of responsibilities, Faith said, her voice tight. To my family, to my band, to my crew, to my fans. I don't need you lecturing me about responsibility. Someone needs to, Whoopi fired back. Because clearly, you're not getting it anywhere else. You're surrounded by people who tell you you're great, who don't challenge you, who let you coast on your talent without ever asking you to be better. Be better? Faith laughed bitterly. What gives you the right to tell me to be better? You sit here on your talk show asking gotcha questions and making people uncomfortable for ratings. Is that your idea of making a difference? At least I'm asking the questions, Whoopi said. At least I'm having the uncomfortable conversations. What are you doing? Besides trying to protect your image and your brand? I'm done with this, Faith said, reaching for her microphone. I'm done being attacked on national television by someone who thinks she has all the answers. I don't have all the answers, Whoopi said. But I know the questions that need to be asked, and I know when someone's avoiding them. I'm not avoiding anything, Faith said, her voice shaking, as she unclipped her microphone. I'm refusing to participate in this circus. You invited me here to have a conversation, and instead, you've turned it into an interrogation. If answering questions about racism feels like an interrogation to you, that's telling, Whoopi said. No, what's telling is that you think ambushing your guests with political attacks is good television, Faith snapped. This isn't journalism, Whoopi. This is just mean. Mean? Whoopi's voice was incredulous. You think calling out silence on racism is mean? That's your priority right now? Your feelings? My feelings are valid, Faith said, her voice cracking with emotion. And so is my right not to sit here and be berated by you. No one's berating you, Whoopi said. I'm asking you to take a stand. I'm asking you to use your power for something good. And you're acting like I'm attacking you. You are attacking me. Faith's voice broke. You've been attacking me since I sat down. Every question has been designed to make me look bad, to make me seem like I don't care, to paint me as some kind of racist sympathizer. I haven't called you racist, Whoopi said firmly, but I am saying your silence is a problem. And if you can't see the difference, that's part of the issue. The only issue here is your need to be self-righteous, Faith said, throwing her microphone onto the table. You need to feel superior, so you tear down everyone who doesn't perform activism exactly the way you want them to. I'm not trying to feel superior, Whoopi said, her voice rising. I'm trying to hold people accountable. I'm trying to push people with platforms to do better. And if that makes you uncomfortable, good. You should be uncomfortable. Well, congratulations, Faith said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. You've made me plenty uncomfortable. You've humiliated me on television. You've questioned my character and my values. I hope you're proud of yourself. I'm not trying to humiliate you, Whoopi said. I'm trying to wake you up. I don't need waking up, Faith said, her eyes filling with tears of anger and frustration. I need to get the hell out of here. She turned and started walking off the set, her heels clicking against the floor. The audience gasped, some people standing up to see what was happening. Faith, come on, Whoopi called after her. Don't walk away from this conversation. But Faith didn't stop. She didn't turn around. She just kept walking, her back straight, her head high, despite the tears streaming down her face. Running away doesn't change anything, Whoopi shouted. Faith stopped at the edge of the stage, turning back one final time. Neither does attacking people on television, Whoopi. Neither does making them feel small and judged and cornered. You want people to do better? Try treating them like human beings instead of punching bags. If you feel like a punching bag, maybe it's because you know you should be doing more, Whoopi fired back. Or maybe it's because you're punching, Faith said quietly. Then she turned and walked off the stage, disappearing behind the cameras and into the wings. The studio was in complete chaos. The audience was shouting, some people booing, others applauding, everyone confused and shocked by what they'd just witnessed. The other co-hosts sat frozen at the table, their faces pale, unsure of what to say or do. Whoopi stood at the table, breathing heavily, her face flushed. She looked out at the audience, then at her co-hosts, then at the camera. We'll be right back, she said, her voice tight. The show cut to commercial, but the damage was done. Backstage, Faith was already heading for the exit, her team scrambling to catch up with her. Her publicist was on the phone, her security guard was clearing a path, and Faith herself was fighting to hold back sobs of fury and humiliation. Get me out of here, she said to her team. I want to leave, now. She didn't wait for a pressed response. She pushed through the backstage door and into the hallway, walking as fast as she could toward the exit. She could hear people calling after her, producers trying to stop her, but she ignored them all. As she burst through the final door into the cool New York air, she took a deep breath, trying to calm herself. Her car was already waiting at the curb. She climbed in quickly, and the door shut behind her, finally giving her a moment of privacy. Inside the car, she let the tears come. All the anger, all the frustration, all the hurt poured out of her. She'd come to the view expecting a friendly conversation, and instead, she'd been put on trial for things she didn't even fully understand. Back in the studio, the view returned from commercial break. Whoopi addressed the camera, her expression serious. "Well, that certainly took a turn," she said. "But you know what? Sometimes the conversations we need to have aren't comfortable. Sometimes they're messy and hard, and people get upset. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't have them." The other co-hosts nodded, though they still looked shaken. The audience was still buzzing, people talking to each other, pointing at the empty chair where Faith had been sitting just minutes before. Outside, Faith's car pulled away from the studio, carrying her away from what would undoubtedly become one of the most talked about moments in View history. She stared out the window, watching the city pass by, her mind racing with everything that had just happened. She'd walked away. She'd refused to continue a conversation that felt like an attack. And now she'd have to deal with the fallout, with the headlines, with everyone having an opinion about what had just transpired. But in that moment, sitting in the back of that car, all she could think about was Whoopi's accusation, the charge of silence, the claim that she wasn't doing enough. Was it true? Had she been too quiet? Had she protected her comfort over doing what was right? These questions swirled in her mind as the car carried her further from the studio, further from the confrontation, but not further from the issues that had been raised. Those